A narcissistic husband treats his wife as an accessory, not a partner. From the very beginning, the dynamic is often one of imbalance, though it may not be obvious at first. In the early stages, he may appear charming, attentive, and overly complimentary, but even then, his focus is not truly on her as an individual with her own identity. Instead, his attention is rooted in how she makes him look and how she fits into the image he wants to project to the world. The compliments, though sweet on the surface, often center on aspects of her that reflect well on him. Her beauty, her accomplishments, her demeanor in public. It's less about appreciating her for who she is and more about how she enhances his own status or ego. Over time, this pattern becomes clearer. Decisions are rarely made as a team because in his mind, partnership is not the goal. He operates as though he is the main character and she is a supporting role whose job is to make his life smoother, his image brighter, and his needs met without question. When choices arise, whether big ones like moving to a new city or small ones like what to do on a weekend, he may give the appearance of consulting her, but the final decision almost always aligns with his own desires. If her preferences differ, they are subtly dismissed, minimized, or framed as less important. Socially, he may take pride in showing her off, not as an equal companion, but as evidence of his success. At events, dinners, or gatherings, she might find that the focus is on how she looks standing next to him, what she wears, how she speaks, and how others perceive them as a couple. Compliments from others about her are treated as validation for him, as though her value is in the fact that she is his. When she achieves something significant in her own right, promotion, a creative accomplishment, or personal growth, he may acknowledge it only in ways that tie it back to himself. It's not, "I'm proud of you," but "that's my wife," as though her successes are trophies in his personal collection. In private, the same mentality continues. He may expect her to maintain her appearance in a way that pleases him, not because it makes her feel good. There might be comments about her weight, her clothing, or her grooming framed as helpful, but rooted in control. The underlying message is clear. Her worth is linked to how she reflects on him. If she challenges this view, he may respond with irritation or passive-aggressive remarks, making her feel guilty for not playing the role he expects. A narcissistic husband often uses subtle emotional cues to keep this accessory, like dynamic, in place. When she aligns with his expectations, he may shower her with praise, affection, or special attention, reinforcing the idea that her value lies in how well she fits the image he wants. But if she steps outside that mold, expressing opinions he doesn't like, asserting her independence, or putting her own needs first, he may withdraw affection, become cold, or criticize her in ways that chip away at her confidence. This creates a cycle where she learns, often unconsciously, that the easiest way to keep peace is to remain in the background, supporting his spotlight rather than sharing it. Conversations between them may also reveal the imbalance. When she talks about her feelings, ambitions, or struggles, he might quickly redirect the conversation back to himself. Her role becomes that of a listener, an admirer, or a caretaker, rather than an equal conversational partner. In conflicts, he might position himself as the victim or the misunderstood one, leaving her to soothe him rather than address her own grievances. This one-sided emotional dynamic reinforces the idea that she is there to serve his emotional needs rather than to be supported in her own. In public, he may portray their relationship as perfect, using her presence as proof of his charm, stability, or success. Yet behind closed doors, there may be a lack of genuine emotional intimacy. She might feel unseen, unheard, and unvalued except in the ways that directly benefit him. Even acts of generosity, gifts, vacations, or gestures of affection are often designed to serve his narrative of being a good husband, rather than stemming from a deep understanding of what she truly needs or desires. Financial control can also play a role. A narcissistic husband may position himself as the primary decision maker in money matters, even if she contributes equally or significantly to the household. He may monitor her spending, make large purchases without consulting her, or frame his earnings as the reason she should be grateful. In some cases, he may even use financial dependency as a way to limit her independence, ensuring that her role remains tied to him. The way he views her extends into the smallest interactions. If she tries to express individuality through hobbies, friendships, or personal choices, he may subtly undermine or discourage them. Friends who don't admire him enough might be deemed bad influences. Activities that don't involve him might be labeled as selfish. This keeps her orbiting around his needs and his image, with little room to explore her own identity outside of that role. When a narcissistic husband treats his wife as an accessory, her opinions, feelings, and dreams are not seen as having equal weight. Her value, in his eyes, is conditional, dependent on how well she enhances his life, makes him look good, or aligns with his constructed image. Over time, this can leave her feeling isolated, diminished, and disconnected from her own sense of self. She may begin to question her worth outside of her relationship with him, not because she is lacking, but because the environment he has created subtly and consistently frames her as a supporting character rather than a co-lead in her own life. This dynamic is not always loud or dramatic. In fact, its subtlety is part of what makes it so damaging. The constant prioritization of his needs, his desires, and his image creates an unspoken rule: she is there to complement him, not to stand independently. Even when he appears loving or attentive, the focus often circles back to how her actions and presence serve his narrative. It's not about mutual respect or shared growth, but about maintaining a hierarchy where he remains at the center and she remains on the periphery, visible only in ways that elevate him. The more this pattern continues, the more normalized it becomes. She may start to accept the idea that her role is to support, admire, and follow, rather than to lead, initiate, or challenge. The relationship becomes less about two people building a life together and more about one person building a life for himself, with the other serving as a carefully chosen adornment to that life. Control is disguised as love, leaving her doubting her own worth. In the beginning, the control may not even look like control at all. It often shows up as attentiveness, as someone who claims to know what's best for her, who says he's simply protecting her from harm or guiding her toward the right decisions. He may present himself as deeply invested in her well-being, but beneath that surface is a constant thread. His approval and affection are tied to her compliance. The more she aligns with his expectations, the more loved she feels. The moment she steps outside of them, the warmth fades, replaced by coldness, criticism, or withdrawal. This kind of control hides under the language of care. He may say things like, "I just want what's best for you," or, "You know I'm only saying this because I love you," when in reality his words are designed to steer her into choices that benefit him or preserve his sense of superiority. He frames his interventions as protection, but the protection comes at the cost of her autonomy. It's not a mutual discussion, it's a pattern of him shaping her thoughts and actions while convincing her that it's for her own good. Over time, these behaviors begin to blur the lines between genuine care and manipulation. He might monitor her activities under the guise of concern, asking where she's going, with whom, and when she'll be back, not because he's worried for her safety, but because he wants to control her movements and associations. If she objects, he may respond with guilt, inducing phrases like, "I'm just worried about you," or "You're making this into something it's not." These statements shift the focus away from his overreach and place the burden back on her, making her question whether she's being unreasonable. In public, this control can take a softer form. He may guide conversations in ways that keep her from speaking freely, interrupting her or subtly correcting her in front of others. He may choose who they spend time with and which events they attend, often making the decisions seem mutual when they're actually driven by his preferences. Over time, she might stop offering her own opinions in these situations, not because she agrees with him, but because she's learned that it's easier to avoid conflict. Financial aspects can also become a tool for disguised control. Even if she contributes to the household, he may position himself as the one who decides how money is spent, framing it as being responsible or logical. If she wants to spend on something for herself, he might question the necessity or imply that it's selfish, creating an environment where she feels guilty for prioritizing her own needs. This financial oversight is often painted as care for the family's future, when in truth it limits her independence and reinforces his dominance. The emotional landscape of the relationship is shaped in a similar way. He may appear loving when she behaves in a way that matches his vision of the relationship. When she expresses different desires, frustrations, or needs, he might pull back emotionally, offering less affection, fewer kind words, or a noticeable coolness in his tone. This change signals to her that love is conditional, tied directly to her ability to conform to his expectations. The withdrawal is not openly framed as punishment, but it works that way, training her to avoid actions that displease him in order to keep the peace. Small disagreements often turn into moments where he reframes himself as the one who truly understands what's right. He may dismiss her feelings as irrational or overblown, even using a calm and patronizing tone that makes her doubt her own judgment. If she insists on her perspective, he might accuse her of being ungrateful or difficult, suggesting that she doesn't appreciate all that he does for her. This shifts the conversation away from the issue at hand and toward her supposed failings, leaving her in a position where defending herself feels like she's arguing against love itself. Friends and family might notice changes in her behavior. She could become more hesitant to make decisions without consulting him, or more reserved in expressing opinions. She might stop pursuing certain hobbies, relationships, or opportunities, often explaining it in ways that sound reasonable. We decided it wasn't the right time. Or, he just doesn't think it's a good idea right now. These explanations are often the result of internalized control, where she has come to believe that his approval is necessary for her choices to be valid. This control disguised as love creates an environment where doubt becomes constant. She may begin to question whether her instincts are trustworthy, whether her preferences are worth expressing, or whether her memories of certain events are accurate. Because his control is packaged in affectionate tones and loving gestures, it's harder to identify as manipulation. When he says he's proud of her, it's often when she's acted in a way that supports his goals. When he offers comfort, it's after she's conceded to his viewpoint. These rewards reinforce the cycle, making her believe that harmony is dependent on compliance. Even in moments where he appears to support her independence, there may be subtle threads of ownership. If she succeeds at something, he might publicly celebrate her, but privately remind her of how he helped or guided her toward it. This narrative keeps him at the center of her achievements, diminishing her sense of personal capability. The more this happens, the more she might start to believe that her successes are not truly her own. When disagreements escalate, he may use emotional intensity to reassert control, raising his voice, speaking over her, or using long silences to make her uneasy. Later, he might soften, apologize in a way that still centers his feelings, and insist that it all happened because he loves her so much and wants the best for her. These cycles of tension and reconciliation blur the line between love and domination, keeping her off balance and emotionally tethered to his approval. Over time, the constant undercurrent of control shapes the way she sees herself. She might lose confidence in making independent choices. Second, guess her feelings before expressing them, and measure her worth through his reactions. Even when she's aware that something feels wrong, the fact that his behavior is wrapped in affectionate words and seemingly caring actions makes it difficult to name it as control. This confusion erodes her self-assurance, leaving her reliant on him not just for decisions, but for a sense of identity. She becomes accustomed to interpreting his approval as proof of her value, even if that approval is only granted when she aligns with his expectations. The idea of displeasing him becomes tied to the fear of losing love, making it harder to break the cycle. As the years pass, the boundaries between her authentic self and the version of herself he has shaped begin to blur, leaving her unsure of who she truly is without his influence.